CSL Primetime is brought to you by Jovova Sports Uniforms and Apparel. Jovova, giving you sports experience for a lifetime. And this is Jovova CSL Primetime. Welcome everybody to our final show of the season. Yes, it was championship weekend last Sunday. And we'll have all the highlights and post-game reaction coming up shortly. Jason DeThomasis will join me here to break down the big game. Also, we'll take a look at the CSL's award nominees, and we will have the plays of the year. Yes, it's a jam-packed show today. But first, of course, let's start off with this Jovova championship game highlights, and it all came down to this. Serbia, Hamilton, playing for keeps. They were the final two teams standing last Sunday, playing for the CSL playoff championship title. Now, they were two squads that defied the odds to get there, eliminating the higher seeds on their way to the big game. So the stage was set, and the two teams definitely did not disappoint. Game highlights now brought to you by Jovova Sports Uniforms and Apparel. Jovova, giving you sports experience for a lifetime. Serbia, Hamilton, for all the marbles last weekend, these two squads had split their season series. They were pumped. The big Serbian contingent of fans made it out for the big game. But it was Hamilton who struck first off a weird one. Domagoj Zubac from about 29 yards out, up, over, and in. Take another look, though, as you'll see, it takes a deflection off the top of the Serbian wall. Nothing keeper Goran Skaric could do about it as he's frozen in place. And Hamilton celebrate accordingly as they go up by a 1-0 count. The first half was actually pretty dead. The second half was crazy, though. This is one of the weirdest goals you will ever see. Hamilton keeper Adrian Becic lays the ball down here. Luka Bojic challenges, and that happens. Massive miscue by the goalkeeper, and the Serbs lose their minds as Becic takes off for his adoring fans. That is a tough way to give up a tying goal in a championship game, and it was all knotted up at 1 through 59 minutes. And then things go from bad to worse for Hamilton as Nikola Stanejevic goes down like a sack of nails with a leg injury, and the Steel City boys lose their captain as he has to be subbed out. The Serbs were the far more aggressive team in the game. 66th minute, Branislav Vukomanovic from 25 yards out rings it off the top of the crossbar. So 90 minutes solved nothing. They were off to extra time, and less than a minute in, the White Eagles strike. Milos Sampanovic with the dagger as he outwits three Hamilton defenders and puts it home to give the Serbs the 2-1 lead. They still had 29 minutes to play, though, in extra time, and Hamilton came close to tying it up. Fran Grbeza from 44 yards out, rings it off the top of the bar, though. And then the Serbs soon after come close to putting it away for good, but Randenko Kamberovic out front here, he rings it off the goalie's best friend as well. Second half of extra time now, it's Hamilton coming oh so close, but they as well would fire it off the goal post, and it trickles just off the goal line there. And then just moments later, the celebration was on for Serbia. What a great game it was as Serbia captures its first playoff title since 2008. Afterwards, Serb game hero Milos Sampanovic stopped by to talk about the game-winning goal.
You know what, the ball popped up in the air and all of a sudden it was on the wing. Came running with all my power as I could, and the ball just came. I tipped it in and bounced off a player of theirs and just went in. tripped the goalie. I still can't believe it went in. I'm beyond happy. I've lost words. I have no idea what to say. 2 lucky goals from our side and from their side, and then, I don't know. Just I guess whoever wanted it more won, and we did, and we scored that second goal. Just I still don't know how it just went in.
Welcome back to Javova CSL Primetime. Alex Bastiavansky joined now by Jason DeThomasis for DT's Breakdown, and quite the game.
Quite the game.
Yeah, high drama at the end of the day, wasn't it?
Very exciting for the neutral fan. I guess we were wrong in our prediction, but credit to Serbs.
A little wrong. Okay, well, let's get to DT's Breakdown, brought to you by Days Inn Hotel, official hotel of the Canadian Soccer League. And yeah, Serbia takes it 2-1 in extra time. Okay, first let's just start off with impressions of the game overall that you had.
So going into the game, we both agreed that Hamilton had a good momentum going in. They beat York Region towards the end of this season. They're doing fantastic. But throughout the game, it was Serbia dominated, up and down the flanks, balls being crossed in, and Hamilton was just sitting back.
Let's break down the goals, first of all. 3 goals altogether in the game. They were all unconventional goals, especially the second one. We will get to the second one in a moment. Let's start with the first one, though. Off the free kick, what went down there?
You know what? It was a beautiful free kick. The wall did its job. Goalie, from what I saw, was cheating a bit to the short side. And once the goalie's handcuffed off a deflection, there's no chance really for him to get back to that ball.
He was basically just frozen in place there, wasn't it?
Exactly.
Just off that tiny little deflection. So it was in, and Hamilton went up by a 1-0 count. The second goal then, we mentioned unconventional, and this one was something you hardly ever see, basically. Very unfortunate for Hamilton. It was up 1-0 at the time. I hate to say it, but I guess we kind of got to put this one on Adrian Becic, don't we, for what happened?
Yeah, like you see a lot of goalies nowadays putting the ball down and playing it from their feet. It's a lot better possession that way, but he had the ball in his hands, no reason to put it down. Took a little bit too much space off the player's back, and you know what? It's disheartening for your team, really.
It's just deflating, isn't it,
Yeah.
basically? You ever played in a game where that's happened? You actually mentioned to me before we got on camera you'd actually scored a goal like that before.
I got the striker, yes, but that came through the run of play. A player passes it back to the goalie.
So he couldn't pick it up.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's not as bad. I don't want to say as bad, but as bad as this play.
Yeah. Adrian Becic had a great season, so we're not trying to pile on Adrian or anything like that. In this case, though, it was, unfortunate way for them to tie it up. Of course, the third goal, Milo Sampanovic, who's the man all season long and has been for years for the White Eagles, just gives that extra little bit, that extra bit of effort to outpace the 2 Hamilton defenders. And you think this one's on the Hamilton defenders, basically?
Yeah, again, from what I saw, there's 3 Hamilton defenders in the box. 2 in front of the ball, 1 behind the ball. Serbia was up and down the flanks all game, credit to them. Ball comes in, passes the first defender, which I thought should have cleared it. Second defender's there, puts his foot in, and it's a goal.
Yeah, I mean, like we mentioned, just that little bit extra bit, though. And he talked about after the game in the post-game interview about he thought his team might have wanted it and just a little bit more, and it showed in this game. And that's got to be said for Milos as well. Of course, we've talked about Milos all season long, and he's the straw that stirs the drink, so to speak. As he goes, so does Serbia. And in the end, he was the difference, not just in scoring the goal, but also just in being an overall terror in this game, wasn't he?
Year in, year out, same player, fantastic player, leads that team. As he goes, the team goes. And again, in this game, well deserving for him to score the winning goal. And without him, I think it would be a different game.
Nikola Stanejevic, the Hamilton captain, ends up getting subbed out in the early in the second half due to an awful-looking leg injury. He had to be helped off the field. What does that do to the psyche of Hamilton at that point, losing their team captain, a guy who normally plays all 90 minutes and likely would have played all through extra time as well?
The captain's obviously the leader of the team, on and off the field. But when a captain goes down, the old cliche is someone's got to step into his place, and it does leave that void. And if the team has the players to fulfill it, I think that it gives you a little bit of a bump. You know, the team comes together, but obviously in this case, it was to their detriment. A
great point that he mentioned to me before we got on was if Cristiano Ronaldo can be lost for Portugal and Euros and the whole team can step up and do it, Hamilton, someone could have stepped up and done it. And this is the other thing about Hamilton now. Against York Region, they played what we like to call the rope-a-dope. They sat back and had about, 95% of the possession in that game. Hamilton scored on the one chance they had. It worked, though, against York Region. They ended up winning the game. Looked like they were kind of trying the same strategy in this game. It was all Serbia on the attack. Hamilton couldn't come up with much of a counterattack, though, could they?
Yeah, against York, York dominates possession, Hamilton sits back, and they were lucky that York wasn't scoring goals. When Serbia tied up the game 1-1, I think that was pretty deflating because Hamilton's plan sort of backfired against them, and they had to go forward if they wanted to win the game or take their chances in a shootout again.
You saw the Serbian celebration after the game. It was a good one. It was boisterous. It was loud. Fans from the stands coming down and celebrating as well. I had to go back and check it. This was actually their first championship since 2008, which, considering some of the powerhouse teams they've had over the last few years, it's a little bit incredible that it's their first title in that long, isn't it?
Yeah, they're always perennial contenders, and when I was playing, that was our biggest win. Well, my biggest win was against Serbia. So them being in the league and them being so dominant, you would think that they have more titles, but that goes to show you that the parity in the league is fantastic, and Serbia winning means everything to them.
And it comes in a year where they were mid-table. They weren't so dominant this year. They kind of creeped up on people, and it's just an interesting year for them to win it, isn't it?
Yeah, again, it's a year where you can say, okay, you know what, York Region should be winning the title this year. Even Ukraine coming on strong. The Serbs are quiet, and they always have the quality, and they stepped in, and good for them.
Okay, well, congratulations to Serbia. We're going to take a break, but when we come back, we've got an entire other segment to sort of just do a brief little review of the things that went down in the CSL this year. More Jevova CSL Primetime coming up in just a moment. Welcome back to Jevova CSL Primetime. Alex Bashavansky and Jason DeThomas is here. We broke down the championship final. Now we're just going to do kind of just a brief little review of some of the things that went down in the league this year. Thoughts, opinions on it. One word to describe the season, and I think we were both in agreement on this, but we would say...
parity, for sure.
Parity, yeah. Just basically those 2 through 5 especially, right?
Going into the year, there's always the favorites, and there's the teams that we're looking at to step up, but 2 through 5, like you said, I think there was a couple points separating them.
Yeah.
Every game over the weekend, there's always positions being changed, and it was incredible to watch.
And of course, Hamilton finishing in 6th, but Hamilton ends up making the final. So there were, I mean, aside from the 2 teams that were out of it this year, were Brantford and Milton. They didn't show, unfortunately. I mean, lots of talent on both teams, but they just didn't show it all year. But those were the 2 teams that were out of it. Aside from that, everyone had a shot, huh?
Exactly. So again, Hamilton being 6th, going to the final, you and I aren't surprised by that, so that shows the parity. Brantford and Milton, it wasn't their best year, but Brantford surprised us a few games, a couple ties, a couple wins. But again, 6 through 1, it was a great games to watch, and we really never knew who was going to win each game.
So we can do the positive and the negative about York Region here. And okay, mostly positive. Obviously the regular season, entirely positive. They were world beaters, regular season champions, 10 goals allowed the entire season. Just talk about York for a second and that, because that's an amazing stat what they were able to accomplish this year.
I look back at the history, and I think even when they went undefeated, the actual margin was still bigger this year. And the goals against, I was joking with a couple former players, and they were bragging how good they were. And I said, guys, I think you're 6 goals to the worst from this team. So it's a fantastic stat. I think for me, the 10 goals against is the best stat. But again, 18 points cleared, that's something that players have to look back to and say, you know what, it was a great season.
Huge accomplishment. Okay, regular season, we might get to the playoffs in a second, a whole other thing. But surprise of the year. I think we would agree on FC Ukraine. Pleasant surprise, first-year CSL team, and they end up in second place. Just talk about that and what an accomplishment that was for them in their first year.
I think coming into the league, you realize actually how good the talent is and how quick the play is. First-year team comes in. You and I were a bit. We agreed that their firepower up front was fantastic.
Defensively, though,
it was
they were suspect. Yeah.
But I guess so. They worked their way up slowly up the table, and finishing second is a credit to them. And unfortunately, in the playoffs, they didn't do so well. But it's good experience, and next year, I expect big things.
Great. So we could definitely go on with a few teams about this. Now, the question is, which team disappointed the most this year? And I was going to say, aside from the obvious, but we're going to point out the obvious. Not the regular season, but the playoffs, and your answer would be York Region. Okay, I mean, it's obvious, but just talk about that for a second, because this is a team you're more familiar with than any other team, being a former shooter yourself.
Going into the playoffs, you have to be full of confidence, and this team obviously had that confidence. With that margin from the top to second, it's something to obviously, it's something to brag about, but you know that the playoffs matter the most, and whether you come first or sixth, if you're in the playoffs and you don't win, it's not the same. So there's definitely going to be a sour taste in the York players' mouth, but it's something to push them next year, and hopefully next year they go all the way. Okay,
so York aside, the other question would have been, okay, so other teams, and the two teams that come to mind for me are Toronto Atomic or Scarborough. Interchangeable because they're both blessed with so many talented players, but it couldn't make it out of the first round of the playoffs. Atomic, Terry Dunfield, for example. Terry had a great year, but the supporting cast around him, just they couldn't bring it together on a consistent basis, and they'd end up losing in the first round.
I agree with you. Both teams have fantastic individual players, and we spoke at the beginning of the year that having individual players is one thing, but coming together as a team is something else. So both teams on paper, probably one of the tops in the league, but it didn't really show throughout the year, and they had up and down games, and it obviously carried on to the playoffs, and both teams struggled, and obviously they got knocked out first round.
In Scarborough, guys like Adrian Kan, who was a late addition to the team, Kirill Dimitra, former Bulgarian First Division pro, Addis Sasic, so much firepower on this team, so many quality guys. But again, finding that consistency this year was a problem, and Scarborough goes out in the first round. One of the best stories this year from a player perspective I wanted to mention, Adnan Smajic of Milton was a really good one for me, and for several reasons. But for one, playing on a weak Milton team, sorry guys, you did finish in 8th place. Talent there, but what didn't show in the standings, unfortunately. But playing on a fairly weak team, 12 goals, which finished 3rd in the CSL. And this is a guy who came up through the 2nd division as well. Played in that 2nd division for Milton before making the jump to the 1st, which is a great story.
One thing I love with the CSL is that they do promote the 2nd division, and it's there obviously for a reason. And it's developed talent for the CSL. And I know that players have gone from the 2nd division to CSL and gone on to some pretty good MLS careers. Mm-hmm. Getting up for game after game with Milton again, nothing against Milton, but it's obviously a poor year. For him to step up, score 12 goals, be their leader in the team, and obviously every team knows he's the go-to guy, and for him to have a good year like that, credit to him, I think it's a great story.
It's a fantastic story, and well, thanks to you for being here every week. It was a ton of fun. Jason, of course, played his career with the York Region Shooters and came in every week to offer CSL expertise, and it was great all season, so thank you for being here.
Well, it's been a pleasure.
And we got you back for next year, right?
Of course.
Looking forward to it. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. More Jabova CSL Primetime coming up in just a moment. Welcome back to Jevova CSL Primetime. Well, typically the CSL holds its annual awards banquet during championship weekend. This season, however, the league will be holding off until mid-January, which means the suspense will build for months since the league won't announce award winners until then. What we do know are the nominees in each category, so let's take a look at those now. Nearly 3 months will be a long time to wait to find out who will take home the individual hardware this year, so let the debate begin as to who will win each category. We start with the CSL Most Valuable Player Award, and of course the nominees are a who's who of dominant performers in the league this year. One notable omission is Ukraine's Sergei Ivliev, who won the Golden Boot Award this year as top scorer. Richard West headlines the list with 13 goals this year, which placed him second overall, and Terry Dunfield made a late season surge to finish with 8 tallies. It's a strong list of veterans and youngsters, any which of whom are deserving of the title of Most Valuable Player. The Defender of the Year category sees a balanced list with 6 of the 8 teams represented. CSL veterans such as Ainsley Deer and Joseph Karen, both previously of Toronto, Croatia, are prominent names. Former TFC star Adrian Can, a mid-season addition to Scarborough, who immediately became an anchor for the team, is a dark horse to capture the award. The Rookie of the Year category showcases just how much of an impact the youngsters had on the CSL this year. Again, an interesting omission being Ukraine's Sergei Ivliev. The vote is conducted by club owners and head coaches, and Ivliev didn't make the list. Teammate Ole Shutov did though, and for good reason, as did York's Evan Butler, who was huge this year, and Milton's Lucky Magori. Finally, the Coach of the Year award. Mirko Medic, of course, led the Serbian White Eagles to the playoff title. Andrei Malyshenkov did a marvelous job with first-year FC Ukraine. Tomo Densedovic had a tough season with his Brantford team, which struggled, while Tony DeThomasis of York Region managed the Shooters to a dominant regular season championship title. Be sure to check out CanadianSoccerLeague.ca over the next couple of months, as the exact date for the January banquet will be revealed. The general public is always welcome to purchase tickets to join in the fun and mingle with CSL stars. Well, the 2016 season saw a ridiculous number of amazing plays, which makes the job of trying to whittle them down to the best of the best a brutally difficult task. So apologies to those who didn't make the cut, but at the end of the day, these are the CSL plays of the year. Okay, let's do this. Number 10, Scarborough against York Region in August. Kirill Dimitrov hits it beautifully, but Emmanuel Ambeltonis just gets his fingertip on it. Number 9, late August now, Toronto Atomic's Vasil shoot with the diving Superman header against Ukraine, and then a little muscle flex afterwards for good measure. Number 8, York's Adrian Ibanez with the utter larceny on Milton's Adnan Smagic. Beautiful save. Number 7, Atomic's Ihor Melnik bends Milton's Boris Bolinovic into a pretzel, turns him inside out, and then deposits for the beauty and a big Atomic win. All right, number 6, Hamilton's Joseph Karen against Brantford from 25 yards out. That is sweet, and the wily veteran Karen still has it. Number 5, Serbia's Branislav Vukomanovic from 35 yards out against Atomic. Top shelf past the sprawling keeper. Sublime shot in that mid-October matchup. Number 4, Ukraine's Serhei Serleyev from 30 yards out here on the fly against Brantford. Tattoos it past Vladimir Vucinovic. A gorgeous goal. Number 3, early September, Scarborough's Mirza Kolic from 35 yards out. There was some mustard on that shot. Huge blast to beat keeper Adrian Becic. Okay, we move into the top 2. York's Alex Stoyanovsky on his bicycle against Atomic. That is an unreal shot, as stunned Toronto Atomic can only look on. And number 1, drum roll, please. That would be Atomic's Terry Dunfield, still looking like he could lace him up with Man City with shots like that. Are you kidding me? 25 yards out, one-timer. Absolutely impossible to stop. You've still got it, Terry, and you've got our CSL play of the year. And we are done. That's it for our final show of the season. Now, before we go, I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone here in the studio and behind the scenes who you never get to see, but who play such a huge part in getting this show to air each week. And also thank you to Jason DeThomasis and Michael Hackett as well for coming in and providing their expert analysis each week. And of course, thanks to you, the viewers, for tuning in. And just remember, in the off-season, you can always head to CanadianSoccerLeague.ca to get all your up-to-date league information, at CSL_soccer on Twitter, and Jevova Canadian Soccer League on Facebook. Thank you so much for watching all season, folks. I'll see you next year.
Okay.